it going for Ryan, everyone. Thank you, guys. So I am a college student at Drexel University, and as a broke college student, whenever you are buying basically anything, there's a rule that says, as long as it doesn't kill you, the cheapest option is the best option. Even if it does kill you, it's usually the best option. But last summer, I was in Hong Kong working there, and while I was booking a flight back home, I went on one of those websites like kayak.com where you just type in where you're going and when, and then it gives you all the options, and the cheapest one is right at the top. So without even looking at it really, I picked the cheapest one, and I found out later that I had a 13-hour layover in Tokyo. Yeah. But afterwards, I was a little excited about it because it's just enough time where I could leave the airport, I could experience Tokyo a little bit, and come back and make my flight. Except the layover was from 11 p.m. to 1 p.m. the next day on a Tuesday in a suburb of Tokyo. So when I get there, the first thing you notice at the airport is they have these really cool hotel-like things. It's basically a wall of what looks like MRI machines that you can sleep in for a few hours overnight. And so I thought, all right, if I go to a bar and I can get some authentic green tea, and then I can come back, I can sleep in the MRI machine, I can go to the Pokemon store when I wake up and go home, that's fine by me. That is just, that's totally fine. So I look on Yelp and I found a bar close by, and the name of the bar was English. It was Coffee and Jazz. And I thought, this is perfect. I like coffee, I like jazz, they've got to have green tea, and they probably speak English there because it's an English name. And I exchanged, I think, $70 into 9,000 yen. I don't know if that's really accurate, but I did it with a vending machine. So I got 9,000 yen, and I got into a cab, and the cab driver didn't speak any English, and I don't speak any Japanese. So we kind of argued about God knows what for a while. And then finally he took me to this bar, and we drove around for like a half hour. He was probably driving me in circles now that I think about it. But when we got there, on the dashboard, it lit up 5,000 yen, which is over half the money that I had one way. So I had to fork over 5,000 yen for this guy. And once I get in the bar, I'm freaking out. And not only because I don't have enough money to get back, but because this bar does not have coffee, it does not play jazz music, and it doesn't have green tea, which is a lot like an Irish bar not having Guinness. It doesn't make sense. But, so I'm freaking out. The only thing I could think of to do was try to download some kind of app where I could pay with a credit card like Uber or Lyft. But again, this is now 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night in a suburb of Tokyo, so there's nothing. There's no taxi that's gonna take a credit card. And I'm sweating, I'm really freaking out, and the bartender can kind of tell. So the bartender tries to talk to me in Japanese, again, over there. And I don't know what to say other than I pick up my phone and I say, taxi. And he goes, ah, and he calls me a taxi. And the taxi comes, and it's the same guy. It's the same guy who took me there. And so I try to barter with him. I take out my 4,000 yen that I have left, and I go, airport, airport. And he just starts yelling at me. He starts screaming at me, just chewing me out. I think he was. It doesn't sound like he was saying, that's a great idea. 4,000 yen, that's perfect. Give it. No. He was just screaming at me, and then the bartender comes outside, and he starts screaming at the taxi driver. The taxi driver's yelling at the bartender, and I'm sitting there freaking out. And finally, I see on his dashboard is a tiny card reader. So I pull out my credit card, and I hold it up, and he goes, and he takes off. And I'm so relieved. And we pull up to the airport, and I step out, and wouldn't you know, it's the wrong airport. And this airport is completely closed. The only lights there are the street lights. So now I'm really up a creek without a paddle. I have no money left to get a taxi to wherever the other airport is that I'm supposed to be at. I'm just kind of sitting there accepting my defeat. And a cop, a Japanese policeman, comes by, and this big Japanese policeman gets out of the car and starts walking towards me. And I've already had a stressful night, but this is just the icing on the cake. And he comes up and he goes, "Konnichiwa," and he's just the sweetest guy in the world. And he tried to talk to me, and I couldn't really understand, but I was trying to tell him where I was, and he wasn't understanding me until I remembered that I had a pamphlet that I had gotten from the airport, and I showed him, and he said, "Oh," and we get in his police car, and he drives me to the other airport, which is also locked and closed, but then he gets out, and he escorts me, he has a key, and he escorts me through this airport all the way back to the MRI machine sleeping pods. And the rest of the trip was fine. I went from Tokyo back to Chicago, and then Chicago to Philadelphia. And Chicago and Philadelphia, they probably have the worst airport staff there is in the world. And while I was experiencing that, I kept thinking to myself, I am incredibly lucky that they were so kind to me in Japan. Because if anything like what had happened to me had happened to a Japanese person coming here, they would have no patience for that. A taxi driver would not try to figure out where he wanted to go. A bartender would not call a taxi to come get him. And a policeman certainly would not pick him up, drive to another airport, and escort him through that. So if I ever go to Japan again, the first thing I will do is hire a translator, as long as it is the cheapest translator they have. Thank you guys very much.
Ryan, everybody.